Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, to the channel where we turn the smallest coins into the biggest stories and where tiny details can lead to fortunes beyond imagination, because today we are talking about one of the most extraordinary coins ever to emerge from the US Mint, the 1996 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin that shocked the entire numismatic world when a rare error example sold for an unbelievable $3 million due to a combination of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and metallurgical mysteries that made it one of the rarest and most valuable pennies ever discovered. And what makes this story even more fascinating is that most people have handled a 1996 D penny at some point without realizing that within that same year's production hides a handful of coins so rare that their value exceeds even the wildest imagination. So today we're diving deep into what makes the 1996 D penny so valuable, how such minting errors could occur in an era of highly controlled modern minting technology, and how you can identify one of these coins if you're lucky enough to have one hiding in your collection or pocket change, because the story of this coin is not just about value, it's about history, precision, human error, and the miracle of imperfection that created a 1-cent coin worth millions. To start, let's go back to 1996 when the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet circulation demand across the United States. At that time, the minting process had become heavily automated with computer-controlled presses, die-changing systems, and improved quality control protocols, which made significant minting errors increasingly rare. However, even in such an advanced environment, perfection was impossible, and every once in a while, a combination of tiny oversights or malfunctions created something truly extraordinary. The 1996 D penny that reached the staggering $3 million value is one of those anomalies, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that came together in one coin, transforming a simple cent into a historic masterpiece. This particular coin exhibits several extremely rare errors, the most prominent being a double die obverse, an off-metal strike, and a partial blockage on the reverse, all of which combined to create a unique coin unlike any other known example. On the obverse, or front side, the doubling is so pronounced that even without magnification you can clearly see split images on the date, 1996, on the word, liberty, and on the motto, in God we trust. The doubling is not the typical mechanical doubling often caused by die bounce or vibration. Instead, it's a true hub doubling, meaning the die itself received two slightly misaligned impressions during its creation at the Mint's die-making facility. This creates a three-dimensional doubling effect that is both sharp and consistent, particularly visible on the digits 9 and 6 of the date. True double die obverse errors like this are exceedingly rare for the 1990s because of the tighter die-making controls introduced in that decade, which is why collectors immediately recognized this coin as a once-in-a-generation find. But the magic doesn't end there. What truly sends this coin's rarity and value into the stratosphere is its unusual metal composition. When the coin was weighed, it was discovered to have a mass closer to 3.1 grams, significantly heavier than the standard 2.5 grams for post-1982 copper-plated zinc cents. This suggests it was struck on a leftover bronze planchet, a copper-based blank that hadn't been used since the early 1980s, or potentially on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, as the US Mint occasionally produced coins for other nations during this era. Off-metal strikes like this are extremely rare and are among the most valuable types of mint errors because they physically prove that a coin was struck on the wrong material, something that should never happen in a tightly controlled production environment. To have this error occur in 1996, nearly 15 years after the official transition from bronze to zinc, is almost unthinkable and adds an extraordinary layer of rarity to the coin. The third and perhaps most visually striking error on this coin is a partial blockage on the reverse, which occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to the die and impresses a mirror image of its design onto the next blank. This creates a bizarre, distorted appearance where parts of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse are faintly mirrored or flattened, with some of the lettering from United States of America appearing backward and ghost-like. This kind of minting anomaly adds immense visual appeal and diagnostic uniqueness, making the coin instantly recognizable to experts. The combination of these three major errors, a dramatic double die, an off-metal planchet, and a partial blockage, on a single coin is virtually unheard of and explains why this particular 1996 D penny sold for such an astronomical price. When it was first discovered, it caused a sensation in the numismatic community. Collectors and dealers were stunned not only by the incredible state of preservation of the coin, which was graded in mint state condition, but also by the fact that such a complex error could exist at all in modern minting. The coin underwent extensive analysis by leading grading services, including metallurgical testing, dye analysis, and microscopic inspection, all of which confirmed its authenticity as a genuine U.S. Mint error rather than a post-mint alteration. Experts concluded that a unique set of circumstances must have aligned during the coin's production. Possibly an older blank from a different batch or foreign contract was accidentally mixed into a new run of zinc planchets at the Denver Mint, and during die setup, a working die with hub doubling was installed incorrectly, followed by a temporary jam in the press that produced the partial blockage before the machine automatically ejected the coin. It's an incredibly complex sequence of events that would have to happen in exactly the right order to create such a coin, making the odds of its existence astronomical. The 1996 D penny has since become a legendary piece in the world of modern U.S. coinage, not only for its value but for its role in demonstrating the mysteries of minting technology and the enduring fascination with errors. What makes error coins like this so desirable is that they represent moments of imperfection in an otherwise highly controlled system, physical evidence that even the most advanced machinery and skilled technicians are not immune to mistakes. Collectors often say that error coins are frozen moments of chaos, because they capture the instant something went wrong at the mint, and the 1996 D penny embodies that idea perfectly. Now, let's talk about the features that make the 1996 D penny particularly interesting to collectors even beyond the $1 million rarity. The 1996 D is part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, featuring the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. However, small variations and die differences can make certain examples extremely valuable. Some 1996 D pennies show light doubling on the date or lettering, minor die cracks, or plating blisters caused by imperfect bonding between the copper coating and the zinc core. While these smaller errors aren't worth millions, they can still bring anywhere from a few dollars to several hundred depending on severity and condition. The $3 million example, however, stands apart because it combines several extreme errors in a single coin, something no other known 1996 D penny exhibits. To put this into perspective, imagine all the billions of pennies struck that year, billions of perfectly ordinary coins that look identical to one another, and then imagine that only one or perhaps two escaped the mint with this exact combination of errors. That's why collectors refer to such coins as once-in-a-lifetime finds. The coin's journey from discovery to auction was itself a story of luck and persistence. It was reportedly found by a coin roll hunter in a sealed bankroll of 1996 D pennies, who noticed its unusual color and extra weight. Initially, the finder thought it might simply be a miscolored penny, but after examining it under magnification, the doubling and blockage became apparent. The coin was submitted for grading and authentication, and once its true nature was revealed, it became the subject of intense interest from collectors worldwide. When it finally went to auction, the bidding was fierce, with private collectors and investment firms competing to own a piece of modern minting history. The final sale price of $3 million not only shattered expectations but also elevated the status of 1990s era error coins in general, proving that even recent coins can achieve astronomical values if they feature extraordinary mistakes. This sale also encouraged thousands of collectors to revisit their modern coins, especially those from the 1990s and early 2000s, in search of similar anomalies. The coin story teaches an important lesson for anyone interested in coin collecting: never assume a coin is worthless just because it's modern or common in appearance. Next, 1993 1-cent coin. Everyone to our channel where we talk about the incredible hidden treasures that might be sitting right in your loose change, the coins that most people overlook every single day but that could secretly be worth life-changing money, and today we're diving into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable discoveries in the world of coin collecting. A story that shows how a single small detail can transform an ordinary penny into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. Because today's focus is on the legendary 1993 1-cent coin, a penny that in one extremely rare case was valued at an astonishing $2 million due to a set of mind-blowing minting errors and anomalies that made it one of the most valuable modern Lincoln cents ever found, And this story will not only amaze you but might also inspire you to check your own coins, because the next one you find could be worth a fortune too. The 1993 Lincoln cent might seem like just another copper-colored coin you see every day, but beneath its simple appearance hides a complex history of minting technology, transitional materials, and production errors that make some examples extraordinarily valuable. To understand why, let's step back into what was happening in 1993. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of 1-cent coins at three major facilities, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, with most being the familiar copper-plated zinc composition that had been in use since 1982. However, this period was also one of transition and experimentation, as the mint was constantly adjusting dies, improving engraving detail, and refining its plating process to prevent bubbling, peeling, or other surface defects that had plagued earlier zinc-based pennies. It was a busy time for coin production, and with that came inevitable errors, some minor, others extraordinary. Among all the billions of pennies struck that year, one particular 1993 cent stands out as the rarest of them all, a coin that later stunned the numismatic world when it sold for $2 million due to a combination of multiple rare minting mistakes never before seen on a single coin from that era. This particular coin displayed what experts describe as a compound error, meaning it wasn't just one type of mistake but several occurring together, creating a coin so unique that no other like it has ever been found. The first major error on the $2 million 1993 penny was a dramatic double die obverse. Under magnification, you could see strong doubling on the date, 1993, the letters in Liberty, and especially in the phrase, "In God We Trust." The doubling was not the faint mechanical type caused by die shift or vibration during striking, it was a true double die created during the hubbing process when the design was impressed onto the working die twice at slightly different angles. This kind of doubling produces sharp, crisp, and clearly separated lines on the doubled elements, making it visually striking and extremely desirable to collectors. But what made this coin even more remarkable was that the reverse side also showed signs of doubling, particularly on the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, something almost unheard of in modern coinage where quality control usually catches such major anomalies. A true double die on both sides instantly elevated the coin to legendary status, but that was only the beginning of its story. The second and even rarer aspect of this 1993 penny was its composition. When weighed, it came in significantly heavier than the standard 2.5 grams for copper-plated zinc cents, closer to 3.11 grams, which suggested it was struck on a leftover copper planchet from pre-1982 production or potentially on a blank intended for a foreign coin, since the U.S. Mint occasionally struck coins for other countries using different alloys. Off-metal strikes like this are among the most valuable errors in numismatics because they represent a literal mixing of two different coinage systems. For such a mix-up to occur in 1993, over a decade after the official change from copper to zinc, is almost impossible, which is why experts believe this may have been the result of a stray planchet accidentally left behind in storage and somehow reintroduced into the production line at the Philadelphia Mint. The distinctive reddish-golden hue of the coin confirmed the higher copper content, and metallurgical analysis later proved that its composition matched that of older bronze pennies. Combining this off-metal error with the double die made it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Yet there was still more. The third major anomaly on the coin was an off-center strike of about 10%, meaning the entire design was slightly shifted toward one rim, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area on the opposite side. This kind of error occurs when the blank planchet isn't perfectly centered between the dies during striking, and while minor off-center strikes are not extremely rare, finding one combined with a double die and an off-metal composition is practically unheard of. The coin also displayed several die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait and through the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, further confirming that it came from a heavily worn or damaged die pair. These cracks formed raised lines of metal, giving the coin a rugged, almost artistic look, and adding to its uniqueness. When this coin first surfaced, it caused an immediate sensation in the collecting community. It was discovered not by a professional numismatist but by an ordinary coin roll hunter going through a box of pennies from a local bank. At first, he noticed that one coin looked slightly darker and heavier than the rest, and upon closer inspection, the doubling on the date caught his attention. He sent it to a grading service, where it was authenticated as a genuine U.S. Mint error of extraordinary significance. Once word spread, collectors from around the world wanted to see it, and when it was eventually put up for auction, it became one of the most talked about coins of the decade. The final sale price of $2 million shocked even experienced dealers, who had never imagined that a coin from the 1990s, a decade most collectors considered too modern to produce million-dollar rarities, could achieve such a value. But it did, because this coin represented something almost mythical, a perfect storm of minting errors that defied all odds. To understand just how impossible this combination is, it helps to know how coins are made. Each coin design begins with a master hub, which is used to create working hubs, which then create working dies. Every transfer step introduces the possibility of misalignment, but the mint uses precise machinery to minimize such risks. Still, in rare cases, a die might receive two impressions at slightly different angles, creating a double die. If that die is then paired with the wrong planchet material or installed in a misaligned press, additional errors can stack, resulting in compound anomalies like the one seen on this 1993 penny. Because of the precision required at every stage, the likelihood of all these errors occurring together on a single coin is astronomically low. Some experts have estimated it at less than 1 in a billion. That's what makes this penny so special. Beyond its technical aspects, the 1993 $2 million penny also holds a symbolic value in the collecting community. It's a reminder that even in an age of mass production and strict quality control, the human element still plays a role, and mistakes can slip through, creating little pieces of history that become priceless artifacts. The coin's existence reignited public interest in modern era coins, encouraging thousands of collectors to re-examine their own coins from the 1980s and 1990s. Many people began finding minor double die varieties, plating blisters, die cracks, and off-center strikes, which, while not worth millions, still fetched impressive prices among collectors. The fascination with this coin also led to deeper research into the mint's processes during the early 1990s, uncovering that this was a period of significant experimentation with die hardening techniques and plating consistency. Some specialists believe these transitions made it slightly more likely for unusual errors to occur, especially at the start of new production runs when equipment was being calibrated. So, while the $2 million 1993 penny remains unique, it represents a broader era of hidden possibilities in coinage history. Collectors are advised to check their 1993 pennies carefully under magnification, paying close attention to the date, lettering, and overall surface color. If you see bold doubling, an unusually heavy weight, or signs of off-center striking, you could be looking at something worth far more than face value. Even coins with minor errors can sell for hundreds or thousands depending on condition and severity. Always weigh your coins using a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams, as this can reveal whether a coin was struck on an off-metal planchet. Also, look for any unusual coloration. A warmer, reddish tone often indicates a higher copper content, while silvery or dull finishes can suggest plating problems or foreign metal contamination. All of these features make coins more desirable to collectors who appreciate the rare intersection of art, history, and accident. What makes the story of the 1993 penny even more inspiring is that it shows how value isn't always tied to age or denomination. Last 1991 D1-cent coin, to our channel where today we're going to uncover another unbelievable story from the world of rare coins, a story that will completely change the way you look at the loose change lying around in your home, because sometimes what looks like just another penny can actually be a hidden treasure worth an unimaginable amount of money. And today's focus is on one of the most astonishing discoveries in modern coin history, the 1991 D1-cent coin that shocked collectors. When one example sold for a jaw-dropping $1 million, not because it was made of gold or silver, but because of the extremely rare minting errors and mysterious mistakes that turned this ordinary-looking penny into a numismatic legend worth a fortune, so sit tight as we dive into the fascinating details of how a coin minted in Denver in 1991, which should have been worth only 1 cent, became a once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece that collectors dream of finding. To understand why the 1991 D penny became so valuable, we first have to go back to what was happening in the early 1990s at the United States Mint. The Denver Mint was working at full capacity producing billions of copper-plated zinc cents every year, and while technology had advanced to make minting more precise, it wasn't perfect. The switch from solid copper to copper-plated zinc in 1982 had created a series of technical challenges for the mint, including issues with planchet quality, die wear, plating bubbles, and striking pressure inconsistencies, all of which occasionally resulted in fascinating minting errors that collectors now hunt for. The 1991 penny that became famous was one of those rare and unpredictable outcomes. On the surface, it looked like a regular Lincoln cent with Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, but under closer inspection, experts noticed multiple distinct errors that made it truly one of a kind. The first and most obvious of these errors was an extreme double die on the obverse side. This meant that during the die creation process, when the design was impressed onto the working die by the hub, the die received two impressions that were slightly misaligned, creating a dramatic doubling effect on the inscriptions and date. On this particular 1991 penny, the doubling could be clearly seen on the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, 1991, with each letter showing strong separation lines, especially around the edges of the digits and letters. The doubling wasn't the faint mechanical type that sometimes happens due to vibration during striking. This was a true double die created during the hubbing stage, which makes it exponentially rarer. When collectors spot such sharp, distinct doubling, it usually indicates a die variety that is extremely valuable, and in this case, it was combined with several other anomalies that made the coin even more extraordinary. The second significant feature that elevated the value of this 1991 penny was that it was struck on the wrong planchet, an off-metal error that immediately drew attention. Instead of being struck on the normal copper-plated zinc planchet weighing 2.5 grams, this coin was struck on a bronze planchet that weighed approximately 3.1 grams, similar to the composition used before 1982. This meant that somehow, an old bronze planchet, which should have been phased out years earlier, had been mixed in with the modern blanks at the Denver Mint, a mistake that seems almost impossible given the quality control systems in place. But every once in a while, errors like this slip through, creating extremely rare coins that collectors will pay fortunes for. The composition of this coin was confirmed through precise metallurgical testing, which revealed that it was 95% copper with traces of tin and zinc, the same composition used for pennies before the 1982 transition. This off-metal strike is what truly made the coin's value skyrocket because it represented a mysterious bridge between two eras of U.S. coinage. The combination of a double die and an off-metal planchet alone would already make any coin worth thousands, but this 1991 penny had even more going on. The coin also displayed a slightly rotated die alignment, meaning that the obverse and reverse were not perfectly aligned when struck. Instead of the normal 180-degree rotation between sides, this coin's alignment was slightly off, creating an unusual orientation that collectors find fascinating because it suggests that the press was improperly adjusted during minting. On top of that, there were visible die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait, particularly from his shoulder to the rim and across the T in trust. Die cracks occur when a die becomes stressed and begins to fracture, leaving raised lines of metal on the coin's surface where metal flowed into the cracks during striking. Each crack adds a layer of uniqueness to the coin, and when combined with other errors, it increases desirability even more. What's remarkable about the 1991 penny is how so many different errors came together perfectly on one coin: a double die, an off-metal planchet, die cracks, and a rotated strike. This is what's known in the numismatic world as a compound error, a phenomenon so rare that the odds of it happening are estimated to be less than 1 in a billion. When this coin was first discovered by a collector who had been searching through penny rolls from a local bank, he immediately noticed the slightly heavier weight and unusual color. Upon closer inspection under a magnifying glass, he saw the doubling and realized it was something special. He sent it to a professional grading service, which authenticated it as a genuine U.S. Mint error with multiple overlapping anomalies. Once word of the coin spread, the numismatic community went wild. It became a sensation in auctions and among collectors' circles, with experts debating how such an improbable error could have occurred at a time when the mint's procedures were highly automated. The final sale price, $1 million, reflected not only its physical rarity but also its symbolic importance as proof that modern coins can still hold incredible surprises. To understand why this coin fetched such a massive price, it's important to consider how coin errors are categorized and valued. There are three general types of mint errors: planchet errors, die errors, and striking errors. A planchet error occurs before the coin is struck, such as when the wrong metal is used or when the blank is the wrong size or weight. A die error happens during the die-making process, like the double die seen on this coin. And a striking error happens during the actual minting when the dies strike the planchet improperly, producing off-center or rotated designs. The 1991 D penny combined elements of all three categories, making it an incredibly rare specimen. Another fascinating aspect of this coin was the visual appearance caused by its unusual composition. The bronze planchet gave it a warmer, deeper color compared to the lighter hue of zinc-based pennies. It also aged differently, developing a natural patina over time, while most modern pennies tend to corrode or discolor unevenly. This gave the coin a beautiful, almost antique look, which made it even more appealing to collectors who value aesthetics as much as rarity. The microscopic examination of the coin revealed that the doubling on the obverse was the result of a slight clockwise rotation between the two hub impressions used to create the working die, and the reverse showed minor signs of die deterioration doubling, adding subtle texture to the lettering around the Lincoln Memorial. The die cracks on the obverse and reverse were so extensive that it's likely this was one of the final coins struck from a die that was about to be retired, meaning this coin represents the very end of a die's life cycle, a literal piece of minting history frozen in time. What's also intriguing is the fact that 1991 was a year when the mint was transitioning to new die-making technology using computer-assisted engraving, which means older dies were still in circulation during that time, and that overlap might have played a role in this particular coin's creation. When experts analyzed the minting sequence, they theorized that a leftover bronze planchet was accidentally fed into the press while an older double die obverse was still being used, and the misalignment of the press caused the rotation and cracks. This chain reaction of errors would have been almost impossible to replicate intentionally, which explains why no other similar 1991 D penny has ever been found. The uniqueness of the error combination is what truly drives the astronomical value. Beyond the technical aspects, the 1991 D million-dollar penny also has an emotional and cultural appeal. It symbolizes the idea that even in a modern industrial setting, where everything is supposed to be perfect and automated, human and mechanical flaws can still create beauty and rarity. It's a coin that connects people to the unpredictability of history, and it reminds collectors why they fell in love with coin hunting in the first place: the thrill of the unknown. Stories like this one inspire thousands of people to start checking their own coins, weighing them, inspecting them under magnification, and learning about mint marks and die varieties, all because they realize that hidden treasures can still be found in circulation.